Good morning. Today is the last day of my trip here and my walk to Finisterre, to the end of the world. It's been one hell of a trip, and I guess I'll just pick up from yesterday. But essentially, I met this Frenchman along the way, and it was my first interaction that I've had in French in this entire trip. And it's really nice to know that the 3 years of French that I took in high school did not go to waste, because I actually could speak fairly well. And also turns out that French and English are way more similar than English and most other languages I've wound up learning. I just sort of didn't realize it because I never used French for anything. But yeah, it was just really, really nice. The guy is so funny, oh my god. Some of the sense of humor on this trip just drive me insane. Because everything's a joke. And I met this Brazilian guy, it's the same thing. He's literally they have a phrase lose the friendship, save the joke. I think that's fantastic. I mean, not great for your interpersonal relationships, but freaking hilarious. Nonetheless, I am not great with alcohol in terms of I just don't really like the flavor that much. But he and I got through an entire bottle of wine and a beer and an espresso. And yeah, I didn't order much to eat because I'm never that hungry. But yeah, the meat fell right off the bones. Last night was one hell of a dinner. So I'm very happy with that. We were laughing for hours, and this is a man who also went to, his name is Jerome, and he, I guess, practices martial arts in France. I'm not exactly sure what his career is, but somehow this led him to go to China to study martial arts for 6 months. And he said that they had to teach him English there instead of Chinese because his English was so bad that they couldn't teach him Chinese in English, which, again, to me is hilarious. But yeah, we're just having a good time all night, and then I finally got to bed around midnight, expecting to wake up early this morning, and here we are, and it's 9 o'clock, and I'm just leaving. Would have loved to get a little bit more on schedule, but that's Camino life. Things happen when you don't expect, and you just gotta deal with it. But yeah, so Gabriel walked 70 kilometers yesterday, which blows my mind. It also means I no longer have the record in this family for the longest amount walked in one day. But he walked for 14 hours straight, and now his feet are in a lot of pain, and he still has another 30 kilometers to Finisterre, although he'll definitely reach there long before I do. I think in the end he actually wound up just walking around the town for a bit in Musha, so that he could get his 100,000 steps in one day in. I don't think he hit his 50 miles in one day, but that was his goal for when he got back to the States. So we'll see if it happens. The thing is, if you walk for too long out here, especially without a break, you just kind of go insane, because while the landscape is beautiful, you can only think to yourself for so long before you're just kind of sick of everything. I don't know, for me it helps to have people around. I don't know if that's true for everyone else. I know a lot of people here really just enjoy the silence and their time alone. But anyways, that's I guess it's that part. And it's only a few hours since the last filming, so just sort of wrapping up loose ends as I approach, and then I've got a long ways of silence ahead of me, and hopefully some interesting interactions. But one of the things that's really interesting about this area is that it looks pretty much exactly like Florida to me. A lot of the landscape, a lot of the nature, the animals too, they're just very reminiscent. Got a lot of pine trees here with all the needles all over the ground. The air is a little bit saltier. It is very much like home. And then parts of the day before were walking through Tennessee. So I kind of feel like I walked all the way across Spain and then walked all the way across the US. And now I'm trying to get to my own coastline so that I can take a plane back to my actual own coastline. Yeah, this trip is amazing beginning to end, top to bottom, but it's really something that has to be done on your own. And I guess that's the other thing I really wanted to talk about in this video, is the on your own part. Because I'm a person who has grown up traveling, at least once a year pretty much. We've gone somewhere, usually another country, for some major vacation as a family. And that has been incredibly nice, and it's helped me really get some good perspective on the world, to the point where a lot of people I've met say I don't sound like an American in terms of the way I think, which I think is kind of true. I like a lot of the European lifestyle, and as well the ideology of really just of of the fact that like your life is not just your life. It's a mixture of your relationship with yourself, your relationship with your family, your relationship with the environment, your relationship with your society. And those are all different things that have, I guess, required various amounts of exposure for me to really understand kind of how I fit into everything. And that's something I'm still learning and will be learning for the rest of my life, because I'll change and all of those factors will change. And you can never know something perfectly. But either way, I don't know. We've also, I guess, side note, we just met some Czech people yesterday, and that was kind of interesting. There's also a guy here from Orlando, so gradually things are getting closer to home and also simultaneously more diverse. But that was just something that popped in my head because the people I saw. But so for me, it was like, I guess a big thing. I talked with my friend Ramona about this because I guess she's experienced some similar things. It's that you eventually have to reach the point where you make your own decisions. And the short version of this is, most of my friends will tell you I have been struggling for that since about the time that I entered college, but I also went through a major depression at that point, and that was just very difficult to juggle the two, because your fight for independence requires you to not have a safety net, and people want to help you, especially when you feel like shit every day. But yeah, ultimately, that was a huge thing, was like needing the independence to like make mistakes, like be late to pay things that you need to pay, and have the consequences for them. Even at times, if it's a result of the depression, it's just like, I don't know. It's hard to distinguish with when you need help and when you need to learn the lesson. But oftentimes, life is a pretty good dealer when it comes to that. It's just if it happens serially, then you usually wind up really needing help. And I've been in that place a few times. But I guess an extension of this, like, two of the things that are very, very important to me are, I guess, being recognized as mature. Like, most of the people I run into think I'm at least 5 years older than I actually am, because it's the way I handle myself. I try to have like a balanced perspective and everything. But it's that and loyalty, right? I like to meet a lot of people, but if someone needs something, I will always be there for them. I try to make that a very strong point in my life. And I guess to also be sort of selfless, to like help others in whatever ways I can. And there's certainly moments in my life when it either takes a ton of effort or like my goal, like I always kind of live by the idea of like for the people. Like, yes, my life is my own, but a lot of the things I'm doing are to help other people. And so basically to have any of those things attacked is very unsettling. Those are my pressure points. Please don't use them. But I guess some of this video is really just for my own mental record keeping. But essentially, yeah, like, you want to talk about manipulation? There are certainly times when people have used those exact things against me. They're like, oh, clearly you're not listening to me is a sign of immaturity, or like, all things over your head, like they help you, but then there's the conditions of like, why did you do it my way? Or it almost seems like deliberate miscommunication, which I've been blamed for, and I've blamed others for, so you can never know, because that's the nature of miscommunication. But yeah, a lot of this is to say, I guess, recognize the signs in your own life. But for me, like when I went to work in Germany, I kind of thought that was like my breaking point, in terms of like, I am finally totally an adult. And then, or at least that was like the big event, because I went around in a language I had just learned. I did it for 3 months. I wrote an amazing research paper, presented at a convention. Like things went really well. I launched some of my first products. Like those were the big moments for me. The only thing that wasn't attached to them was the money that I needed to get by, aside from the scholarship that I got for the program. But and then I worked my own job, like a career job, like as an engineer. And I don't know, you'll find, especially in this day and age, like people are trying to help, but it winds up being kind of helicopter-y at times. We're kind of, in some ways we are echoing our parents, in other ways we're backlashing and trying to do the opposite of what they did, because many people from the previous generation like find their parents did not like adequately support them. I have the example of my grandmother who wanted to be an engineer. Like, her husband basically said, "You're not going to work," and she wound up finding other things to do in her life. But now she goes to Vegas and like goes around the world, and these are things that she does only now that she's by herself. And you know, family history is hard to explain, especially in a context like this. It's one of those things that's a lot more one-on-one for me. I kind of think it should be that way, because Saturday night with dirty laundry is not for the world to see. It's for you to keep an inventory of your issues and resolve them gradually. But that has been such a big part of my Camino, is finding my independence essentially for the second time, because you're going to make decisions here that people don't agree with, the things you visit, people you hang out with, the time that you choose to take for yourself and for your goals. For me, my goal is Finisterra, and that is the end of my Camino. And you know, you will upset people, but it's part of the journey. Independence is a part of the journey, as is considering others. But I don't know, in some ways I feel like my integrity is called into question with decisions like this. But they say, and I've learned really to live a lot by the Camino practically as a religion, not in the worshiping sense, but in the sense that like, this is one of those places where you just sort of find everything you need exactly when you need it, even if it seems really inconvenient. So as someone who has looked a long time for the concept of like, trust the process, trying to find it in things, it sort of just shows up here, and I like that lifestyle a lot more. I come from a family that's like fairly, not like super strict, but like fairly strict, very academically focused. There's sort of like the can and can't do's. Like, grew up like pretty against alcohol, not my parents, but just like with that ideology. And so, you know, I guess you take it as it comes, but then when you become an adult, you do eventually make those decisions for yourself, or sometimes as a teenager. And I realized far too late that being obedient as a teenager did not solve the problem of becoming an adult, because I assumed that like disobedience would like separate me, for example, from my parents and or other family members. But at the end, it's like you just have your teenage phase later if you don't start trying to figure out who you are then. But I think most of us may find that our parents do not still take orders from our grandparents, and there's a point where that'll happen for you too. But I don't know, everyone's relationship is different. I guess my point is, this is one of my breaking points of independence, because all I've wanted to do for 30 days is just jump in the ocean of Finisterra, and I've become more and more confident in that decision and many others as I've kind of gone through here. I've learned a lot from people, especially like I think like in romantic relationships and friendships, sometimes the people that get pissy, you just gotta let it play out. I've always tried to like resolve the issue, and then learned, okay, resolving is not the right thing. So do you just comfort them? Because a lot of people don't want the problem solved, they just want to listen here. But no, literally, it is just a matter of just let it play out, let them do their own thing. And in my independence, I also found like the benefit of other people getting their independence from me. Like my brothers and other relationships, just like c'est la vie. And maybe that's a little bit of an issue when I was teaching my brother to drive, because I was the only one who didn't yell at him in the car, and he doesn't, or at least in the beginning, he really struggled to like get parking and stuff down. So I don't know. I guess that's another thing, is like when we're younger, we're taught like there is a way to do things. There's a tradition at the very least. Turns out there's just many options, and really just depending how much evidence you have from one side or another, you may wind up swaying towards one side or another. So there's really no good answers for things. And I guess it's another thing the Camino's presented, because as I've crossed paths with people from like many different religions that I did not expect to find out here at all, people with different histories, thought processes, ways of handling other folks and hanging out and everything, it has truly been amazing to me that every one of them has offered so much insight to me. And I mean, I guess you have to be careful with like the decisions you don't want to wind up making. Like, say you don't want to wind up smoking, it's not a great idea to have friends that are only smokers. But it also is very clear to me now that the more diverse your group is, the more you learn. Because the people who think and see the world differently from you will also see you differently than you see yourself, be able to offer some great perspective. But it's also good to have people like you because it helps you grow in the things that you're interested in. It helps you find comfort, and it's nice to feel sane when there are people that think like you. Ultimately, I think that is still something that's fairly important for like romantic relationships and maybe your closest friends. But yeah, I don't know. Lots of different things I've learned just about people, and I wish I could explain them all. But I think so many of them just become part of this like algorithm that you approach life with, so that all the things you do from that point forward are affected by the words that people have said. But they're not things that you can constantly take inventory of and categorize and analyze, because it's just part of life. And I think maybe that is one of the biggest, if not the biggest takeaway from this entire trip, is I've been a person who loves to do, but has gotten constantly afraid of it. And it has wound up shooting me in the foot more times than I can count, because I'm not confident enough to drive the things I want to completion. And I find that like when I talk about my plans, it sometimes disassembles the plan, because now I'm like, oh, I've done some part of it, so now it's over. And I wind up in this like constant loop of analysis of like, what have people said to me? What am I working on? All these things. But I guess the biggest thing for me is do more than I talk. Because I've got plenty of analysis. I've also realized that analysis does not even bring you like a sufficient amount of closure. It's still just like analysis leads way to more analysis, that it many times often just makes you more confused. Or at least it makes you more aware that even if you make a decision, there's so many other options you could have gone with, and there's good reasons for all of them. So yeah, essentially, like when I go back, I'm going back to a company that's in need of being launched. I'm going back to music that I started writing here that needs to be finished. I'm going back to a play that I've been working on for 8 years, and books that I've been working on for 9. And it's time to wrap some projects up. It's time to throw some projects out and move on with my life, because I've got things to do, both hobbies and main ones. But last night I was saying to Jerome that 2 of the best pieces of advice I got on this trip in terms of my work, which is something I've been struggling to figure out exactly how to handle, because I like to work 7 days a week, but I also get burnt out a lot, is from a serial entrepreneur I heard, just focus on one thing. He said he learned it very early in his career, and it has helped him every day. And he has also worked every day for almost 50 years, and he loves it. He loves his work. And so on this trip, he was finally taking time to adjust to retirement. And so it's like, if I want to work the way I do, that 7-day-a-week thing where I love my work and I am constantly innovative, then I might need to do that. Focus on one thing. And he said, but have hobbies. And the other thing was from Bella, who's done 1,000,001 things under the sun, many of which I would like to do. And she was getting advice from an older lady who said, choose 10 things and do them. And even if 5 fail, you still have 5. Which is not great in terms of like casualties. It's not passing. But in a world where you only really need one thing, at least for your self-satisfaction, then it's more like getting 100% out of 1,000% than it is getting 10% out of 100. So if you wind up with 500%, that's pretty good, despite the fact that it does not work out mathematically. So anyways, yeah, focus on one thing really well and have hobbies, and do 10 things, and at least you'll have 5 left. And so for me, that's writing, that's music, that's motivational speaking, which is something that's always been in the back of my head. But when someone actually said it on this trip that I'd be good at it, I think that might be my cue, hence some of these YouTube videos. We'll see where it goes. Yeah, YouTube is another one. And like, God, connecting people has been fantastic. That's something I've like taken up both in that last class that I took, the like entrepreneurship cohort when I was founding this company, and also like even on this trip, I'm just like, let me give you some contacts. Let me find contacts, because I love hearing people's stories. I love talking with them. I love finding diverse perspectives and then trying to help those people out in ways I can. And I've been told many times by entrepreneurship professors that it is more helpful to have contacts than money, because contacts have the knowledge, they have the know-how, and they have the ability to help you get where you actually want to go. They have the years of experience that money can't buy. So that's what I'm trying to give to people, because I know I don't have all the answers. I'm young, I haven't finished even starting a company, but I do have a good idea of how to connect with people and a diverse range of knowledge, and so try and use that to at least give something back. But I think it was really helpful to recognize that that's not a particular like academic skill that I thought I needed. It's something that like sort of comes naturally to me, and so being able to give back in what is a somewhat unorthodox way has actually been just really nice, because it means that I can do something now. I don't need money to give back, because I don't have money to give back at the moment, but I can start working on projects. And then the last thing is like, when I get back, I'm hoping to put together a panel of educators and start looking at the ways that we teach in my home county, Broward County, in Florida, and seeing if we can expand from there, connecting with nonprofits, just sort of feeling it out. Because to me, my like 3 big issues are poverty, education, and hunger. And if I can make some serious improvements to those, and theoretically lift up, middle class lifestyle, and in general, the way we interact with one another in the meantime, I will die a very happy man. So, but I just need some time to pull it all off. So that's roughly it for today. Got a lot more walking to do, and I will see you guys after finish that. So, arguably for the last time on this trip, Buen Camino.